if you are coming into this like, I want a sports car or a sporty car, you want to look at the EV6, not the EV6, the EV6. I'll swallow my pride, I will choke on the runs, but the lack thereof will leave me empty inside. Our travels this week bring us to sunny Northern California in Napa County to experience the all-new Kia EV6 electric car. The EV6 is based on Hyundai Kia's E-GMP platform, and this is our second taste at a car built on that platform, as we've already checked out the Hyundai Ioniq 5. How does Kia's new EV6 stand up to Ioniq 5 and the other new EVs that are on sale? Let's take a look at this car and find out. The Kia EV6 shares the same E-GMP platform as the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Genesis GV60. That means underneath the components are nearly identical. That means that the EV6 comes in either rear-wheel or all-wheel drive with two different battery sizes. The EV6 Lite has 167 horsepower and is rear drive. The Wind and GT line rear drive models make 225 horsepower. The all-wheel drive versions of the Wind and GT line trims make 320 horsepower. The EV6 Lite has a 58 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which helps keep the cost down, but does sacrifice some range. The rest of the lineup has a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack. The EV6 Lite is rated for 232 miles of all-electric range. The rear-drive Wind and GT line trims, with the larger battery pack, are rated at 310 miles. Opting for all-wheel drive on either of those trims increases power, but decreases range. The range on the all-wheel drive models is rated for 274 miles. Now that you understand how the lineup is broken down, let's see what they're like to drive. Now we're out taking the EV6 for a spin, and the first thing that I notice, honestly, is how good the steering is. I'm currently in an all-wheel drive version. Earlier this morning I drove a rear drive version, and the turn-in is just like fantastic. It goes exactly where you point it. There's not a lot of feedback because of course it's electric power assisted steering, but it goes where you point it. And the way that it sort of, especially if you take a corner at speed, the way it kind of builds up a little bit of weight is great. And the beauty, especially of the rear drive one, is when it does build up that little bit of weight and you need to turn in just a little bit sharper, just give it a little bit of gas and the back end will just kind of rotate just a tiny bit. What I was telling the folks at lunch and what I'll tell all of you is whoever engineered the driving dynamics of this car likes to drive. They are an enthusiast. Compared to the Ioniq 5, which is also on the E-GMP platform like the EV6, this is definitely a driver's focused vehicle. Some of that just involves the cockpit and the way things are laid out, but when it comes to actual driving dynamics, the Ioniq 5 drives well as a cruiser, as a long distance highway, vessel, basically. This will do that, but it'll also tackle a back road with ease. The suspension's a little bit stiffer, so if you're looking for that cruising kind of car, obviously the Ioniq's the better way to go. But if you like a little bit of sportiness, this delivers that in spades. Still lots of space in the back. I mean, like I said, this is one of those E-GMP cars. The wheelbase is as long as a Telluride. It's a lot of space. Visibility is pretty solid. The rear three quarters is a little hampered by just the more sleeky nature of this design. It's actually a little bit easier to see out of the back of the Ioniq, just to use that as a comparison. But visibility is still great, especially out the front. Not a huge blind spot area with this A-pillar. Just generally good visibility. These higher spec cars have the blind spot camera. So in addition to blind spot monitoring, when you turn your indicator on the instrument cluster, it'll show you what's in your blind spot with a visual camera, which is great. The infotainment is super solid in here. If you've driven a modern Hyundai or Kia product, you'll be familiar with it. This is a little bit Kia-focused, Kia-centric design, so a little bit sportier kind of fonts, a little bit darker colors. You can tell you're in a different car, for sure. A little bit more gloss black usage too, sort of in the center. There's no real center console in the Ioniq. This protrudes out and has your start button, your drive selector, as well as heated and ventilated seats, your wireless charger, things like that. The drive mode selector in this car is actually on the steering wheel, which is a little bit sportier, and dumping it over into sport from normal improves throttle response and just kind of spices things up a little bit. Neither one of these cars have adaptive suspension, so you're not changing the ride quality much, but you are changing the responsiveness of that accelerator pedal. Other cool things, you get a fully functional sunroof here. It opens up, lets the air in. It's instead of just having just a glass roof to see through. The steering wheel is comfortable. It is only a 2-spoke design. Looks a little weird when you look at it, but when you drive it, it feels perfectly normal. Definitely no learning curve there. The car I'm driving is equipped with a heads-up display, which has that augmented reality satellite navigation, which, again, refer back to our Ioniq 5 video, has the same system. But as you approach an intersection, there's arrows pointing sort of which way you need to turn on the heads-up display, and it gets larger as you get closer and points more towards the way you need to go. So in more difficult intersections, you should have a better idea of exactly which road you need to turn on. In the town that I live in, there's an intersection that has 5 different roads at one set of traffic lights. Sometimes people make the wrong turn there because it's like, okay, well, I turn left here, left here, left here. The augmented reality navigation would actually solve that problem, which is great. Dual motor versions like the one I'm in right now feel noticeably quicker than the rear drive setups, which they should. Extra motor, more power. Also, all of the dual motor versions will come with a heat pump, and that will help the heater efficiency during cooler situations in winter, along with the added benefits of just extra traction in the winter. So the all-wheel drive one is probably the way I would go and the way I'd imagine most people would go, but I was really impressed with the driving dynamics of the rear drive. I could be perfectly happy with a GT line rear drive all day and night. Other high points, I mean, seats are comfortable, they're heated and ventilated in this model. It's easy to find a comfortable driving position. Because the sunroof does open, the roof's a little bit lower, so I kind of feel, I don't want to say claustrophobic, but I do feel pretty close to the sun visors in here. It's okay. It's not a deal breaker or anything, but the Ioniq 5 does feel a little bit more spacious. And honestly, as does the Tesla Model 3, just because it's just a piece of glass instead of all of the sunroof opening mechanisms. I mean, this car's great. I mean, it's everything that I liked about the Ioniq 5. So it's the 800 volt architecture, meaning you're going to be able to charge at over 200 kilowatts pretty consistently, which cuts charge times down dramatically, makes it potentially a road trip car, which is great. The all-wheel drive obviously is going to help in the winter, but adds that extra performance. This car is quicker than most cars on the road, and this isn't even the GT version that is coming next year. That version of the car is going to have a 0 to 60 time maybe in the 3.5 second range, maybe quicker. Quicker than a Porsche Taycan 4S for sure. And coming from a brand that's, not really that performance oriented, that's pretty sweet. Ultimately, there's things that I like about both these cars, and the reason why I keep comparing this to the Hyundai is they're built on the same platform, they have the same powertrain, same battery, same charging architecture, and all of that. But what's impressive is how different each of these cars feels. So, as I've said before, like, if you are looking for a comfortable long-distance cruiser with something that looks absolutely just kind of bonkers, concept car, retro future bonkers, the Ioniq 5 is probably the car you want to look at. If you care a little bit more about driving dynamics, maybe the appearance of the Ioniq 5 doesn't appeal to you, then you want to look at the EV6. It is a car. It's not that it doesn't look great. It looks great. It just looks like it belongs a few years in the future. A 2027 car is kind of what this kind of looks like. Kind of reminds me of where the Ioniq 5 looks like. Oh, it's a 2027 car from somebody who penciled that in the 1980s of what they thought a 2027 car would look like. So, different appearance, different stroke, whatever. but it is actually impressive how different these cars are for a platform that is identical underneath. And overall, this is my second taste with these E-GMP cars. The third one coming is the GV60 from Genesis. And I imagine it's probably going to have a different vibe altogether too. So it's really what the Korean manufacturers have been able to do with this platform is, honestly, it's incredible. And it's not like you drive along and you're like, wow, this is amazing. You just drive along and you're like, no, this makes sense. This feels right. The performance is good. The charging is good. You don't feel like you're making any compromises with a GMP car, an E-GMP car. And that's the real kind of joy about driving this car. It's the real joy about driving the Ioniq 5, the upcoming Ioniq 6 and 7, the crossovers that are going to come from Kia on the same platform. Like, these are going to be really good cars. And these are some of the first cars that I could sit here and say, look, if you don't want a Tesla, but you want to have a really, really, really good experience, I think these cars are the way to go. And right now, if you are looking at a new car that's not a Tesla, you should be looking at an 800 volts. And if you can't, swing a Taycan, I can't. This is probably the car you're looking for. So, really, really like it. Kia did a good job. I said on the Ioniq 5, it might be my car of the year. I don't know now, right? But the underpinnings are all the same, so it makes sense that I like it there. But I do prefer a driver-focused car, and this one really delivers on that in a way I didn't quite expect. Like I said, I think the highest praise that I can give it is whoever designed the dynamics of this vehicle, whoever engineered the dynamics of this vehicle likes to drive. There's somebody that goes out on the weekend and drives. And I know that because I can feel it every time I take a corner in it. And I think that's the best praise I can think of.
Pricing for the Kia EV6 is broken down a few different ways, including by battery size and whether or not it's all-wheel drive. The EV6 Lite starts at $42,115 with delivery and is rear drive only with the smaller battery. The EV6 Wind rear drive model starts at $48,215. The EV6 GT line with rear drive starts at $52,415 and was our favorite of the day to drive. If you decide to opt for all-wheel drive to get the heat pump and improved winter traction, the EV6 Wind all-wheel drive starts at $52,115, and the better equipped EV6 GT line starts at $57,115. Just as a reminder, all of these prices include the $1,215 delivery charge. While you're here, make sure to check out our Hyundai Ioniq 5 first drive video. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can catch the latest EV drives as soon as they go live.
As you can see, we think that the Kia EV6 is a phenomenal automobile that's great to drive, fast to charge, and easy to live with. It's the next step in the evolvement of Hyundai and Kia's E-GMP platform, and we think it's pretty good.
For more in-depth coverage of EV6, be sure to check out our website at evpulse.com. Thanks for watching.